Thanks, Cantoretti.
You're welcome, Rabbi Mintz.
I looked down and I saw Pete Hooley and I gave her a mind meld. And I said, in my mind, I hope it's the Open the Gates one. I hope it's the Open the Gates one. And then she got it. That's such a beautiful poem and song and prayer for Elul, because it really feels like if this is your first Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the first Elul season with us, or maybe you're 103rd, like our beloved friend Rita, wherever you are on that spectrum, the idea of gates is so present, this idea of opening up the gates and letting us enter, whether it's letting us enter into ourselves and working on the hard things, or entering the gates back to life. And at the very, very end of Yom Kippur, the very last service is called Ne'ilah, which is the closing of the gates. And I especially love the fact that when it says the gates close on Ne'ilah, actually, it's almost like when you slam two gates together. It's not Ne'ilah, it's not really closed, because they slam and they open just a tiny, tiny little bit of a crack to let whatever needs to keep coming in for your tshuva to register. I also think about opening the gates because if you're anyone who's worked in a synagogue, as it approaches Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, literally a day or two before Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, this is what it sounds like. Congregation Emanu-El, how can I help you? Oh my God, thank God you're still there. I just looked and it's Rosh Hashanah tomorrow. Are you still open? You're still good. And this is what people say, can I still get tickets? Is what people say. I forgot to, whatever it is, renew my membership. So this is a little plug, renew your membership. But people, what I really hear in that when people say, can I get tickets? They're saying, are the gates going to be open for me? Can I still get in? It's a lot more profound than just tickets, than just a membership. It's about belonging. It's about our tribe. It's about, please, my community, let me in. Please, God, let me in again this year for the Book of Life. How many people here, if I ask you to remember your first Rosh Hashanah, you can remember it? Just close your eyes for a minute and think about, what was your first Rosh Hashanah? For some people, it's like when you were a kid. For some people who joined the Jewish tribe later, and I always think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and I think about the shofar. Because for me, when I was a little girl, I grew up in a Reformed congregation in Chicago, and the rabbis and the cantors all still wear their long white robes, which we do on Yom Kippur, a kittel or a robe. And there was always this really old guy who had a white beard and this wavy white hair, and his job was just to blow the shofar on Yom Kippur. And I was mesmerized by him because that was his whole job. And I thought, that's amazing. Everybody was mesmerized when the blast of the shofar happened. And I thought, I want to do that one day. I want that to be my whole job. I didn't know that he was an orthodontist as well. Obviously, that's not your whole job, but it can kind of be your whole life. If you think about the shofar and you think about, we only get to hear 100 blasts of it on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that wailing, aching, crying sound, which is really beseeching us to do this tshuva, to do this work. The other, for me, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur feeling of really getting it for the first time was when I was in rabbinical school, and I lived in Jerusalem, and I was about to start rabbinical school, and the first morning I was there, just as the sun was coming up, I heard somebody blowing a shofar. And I thought, who the heck is doing that? Somebody very religious, obviously, at dawn. Next morning, the same thing. The next morning, the same thing. And I started waking up to the shofar every morning and walking out in the darkness at dawn in Jerusalem and just walking through, trying to figure out who the heck was blowing the shofar, because I didn't know that you were supposed to blow it every single morning during Elul. And it turned out right around the corner from my apartment was a tiny little Orthodox shtibel. And a little old guy, it was his job to blast the shofar every single morning. And I woke up for 29 days at dawn because of that. And I can't ever stop thinking about how important these 29 days are right now. Elul is the first day of Elul. We're in the middle of it right now. And as Rabbi Bauer said, when we just have a speck of moon, it's going to be time for Rosh Hashanah. And 10 days later is actually, according to our tradition, when the Israelite people are forgiven not just from Yom Kippur, but they're forgiven because of that 40 days that Moses was up on Mount Sinai. So there's this whole arc of our traditional history, and there's also the whole arc of just this microcosm of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I think that I can't speak for all of you, I'll just speak for myself. I feel a little out of control these days. Like I want to speed up time or slow down time. I want to be more in control, and I feel like I'm a lot less in control of myself and the world than I want to be and than I used to be. But I feel so blessed that we have Jewish tradition, because we are literally the people who know how to live in a world that's felt out of control for us for 4,000 years. We have an entire tradition which gives us a pathway, a support system, a calendar, a beckoning to gather, a strategy to adapt, because we were born into a story that's not simple or easy, and we're really good at navigating stormy times as a people. I especially love what Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who was the chief rabbi of the UK, he says very simply, this is what our whole life is about. 3 words. Say them after me. Live, give, forgive. Live, give, forgive. It seems kind of Buddhist to me, but he was really a rabbi. That's what we get. We're here to, as it says on Nitzavim, on Yom Kippur, Uvachartam v'chayim, and you will choose life. Be generous, do tzedek, righteousness, justice, give tzedakah in the world, and finally, do tshuva, be forgiving of yourself and others. It's this deep, deep spiritual work that we do every year at this time that I used to not be so fond of as a kid, and now I look forward to as an adult. In case you're wondering, in a world that's so broken, if we really have permission to do this work, listen to this. That word achat, from achat shalti, centered, collected, together. But a certain voice replies, the world is falling apart. Isn't it a bit self-absorbed to be focusing on personal spiritual renewal at a time like this? Isn't this a distraction from the real problems of the world? What I've learned from my own experience of mindfulness practice is quite the opposite. If I am uncentered, if I'm given over to uncontrollable waves of anxiety, anger, or fear, then I become part of the problem, and I can't be a part of the solution. I project my own insecurities and struggles in the world. In Jewish language, our religious practice is called avodah, or service. My spiritual practice is in service to something higher than my own happiness. I sit, I pray, I walk, I sing, sometimes I'm silent, all in the service of seeing more clearly the world around me and discerning the wisest, most ethical course of action to take. There are plenty of voices of anger, of hysteria, of vitriol and violence all around us. I strive to be a different voice and take actions that promote peace, justice, understanding, and compassion. And that's from our friend Rabbi Toba Spitzer on remembrance, reflection, and repair. I also want to think about just how lucky we are to have that sound of the shofar. And what Rabbi Ellen Liu says in the book that, it's kind of, I think, the book I've read more times than any other one book it's called. Does anybody know what the book is called? This is Real, and You Are Completely Unprepared. And you think you'd read at the beginning of Elul and go, not this again. You think, oh, you know what? It's okay that I'm unprepared for what is about to happen to me. It's okay that I'm unprepared for this passageway. It's okay that I'm unprepared for the tunnel that might be dark, because I'm not alone. God is with me, my people are with me, and I'm going to get through to whatever the other side is. He says, when the shofar sounds 100 times, it blows open the gates of heaven. When the shofar sounds 100 times, it forms a bridge between heaven and earth, and we enter heaven on that bridge. When the shofar sounds 100 times, it cracks the shell of our awareness wide open, and suddenly we find ourselves in heaven. When the shofar sounds 100 times, we hear the voice of heaven in it. We experience revelation. God's voice comes down to earth on the same bridge we use to go up to heaven. Now, it's interesting that he uses that because we don't even believe in heaven. Jews don't believe in heaven and hell, but we believe in a slice of heaven here on earth. And that's what tshuva gives us, this process of sifting through the stuff inside of us and having a little bit of, when we imagine what it's going to be like in the world to come, how do we live in the world to come every single day? And I would say that it's doing this hard work of tzedek, of tshuva, of prayer, of service, doing that every day, and you're going to be living a life in heaven. If you're a kind of a crummy person, you're already living a life in hell, and you don't have to worry about the afterlife. That's just my Jewish take on it. Finally, I have to think about Psalm 27, which we sang a little bit of, Achad Sha'alti, that there is a practice of reading Psalm 27 every single morning. And so I'll give you a prescription between this day, we're halfway through Elul, and when Rosh Hashanah starts. If you haven't started your practice of calling the people that you've had a hard time with, everybody in here, I know as perfect as you are, has one relationship or two or three or many that you're feeling a little achy about. Now is the time to just open up your hearts and really say you're sorry and ask for forgiveness from whoever it is. I'm thinking about that person right now. Who do I have to call? Somebody today said, I texted and I emailed and they didn't get back to me. And I said, it's not enough. You have to actually call and have them hear your voice. You don't have to actually get on a plane and go because of the world that we live in, but when there's people that you want to have some conversations with, this is the time and the opportunity. And it says, one thing I ask, I earnestly pray for, I might dwell in your house all the days of my life, knowing the beauty of you and dwelling in this holy place. Where is it in you that is a sanctuary, that can be a palace of God, that can be holy, that can be tender, that can be compassionate? And I ask you one more thing. What are you going to ask for? What are you going to pray for? What does your soul need this Rosh Hashanah that it's never needed before? Live, give, and forgive. Amen.